But you look at the budget papers last night, only 5.7 of that is in the 4-year forward estimates, which I think is pretty appalling. What's your takeout in a national security sense in the budget?
Well, Peter, great to be with you. You've had a terrific program tonight, full of information about the budget. Look, I think this is in many ways the most scandalous failure of this government of all. Richard Marles ought to be prosecuted under truth in advertising legislation. So, two simple facts about the defence budget. First of all, Marcus Hellier from Strategic Analysis Australia, you know, the preeminent defence budget analyst in Australia, says defence has lost about 8% of its purchase power because of inflation. It doesn't get compensated for inflation. It does get compensated for currency movements. So under the Albanese government, we've had a real cut in defence spending. Now, the $5.7 billion, which Richard Marles says is going to come over the forward estimates, it turns out that even of that amount, almost all of it comes in the last year of the forward estimates. So it's not until the fourth year that $3.8 billion of that, you know, frankly, quite trivial amount of money comes. Now, assuming Andrew Clennell is right and we get an election this year, that means that will be in the first budget of the third term of the Albanese government before you even get a notional increase of that $3.8 billion. So all of these sky-high figures Richard Marles talks about, it's like a bad episode of Utopia. He's talking about spending in 10 years' time and in 20 years' time and so on. A small thing, the forecast that said he was going to go up to 2.4% of GNP in 10 years' time or something, it's come back to 2.3%. But none of that is real. It's all baloney. I am a bit mystified why the opposition doesn't eviscerate him more. I think it's because, frankly speaking, they had such a shocking record themselves in government, and they're going to have to make a real commitment about dollars themselves. But quite soon, NDIS will be a bigger expenditure item than defence. We're starting to spend billions of dollars on nuclear subs. We're going to cripple all the other programs, and the nuclear subs are at least 10 years away and probably more. And the final thing is, we're 4,500 short of our numbers now. Next year, we're going to be 5,000 short of our troop numbers. So this is a debacle in defence, and I'm surprised that, as I say, that the government doesn't pay more of a penalty for it.
I did think of you last night, Greg, as I was listening to the government sort of squirm a little bit when people said, well, why couldn't you have targeted that $300 energy payment? Why are millionaires getting it? Why does it go to everybody? And they said, oh, look, it's the systems can't work. It's too complex to have worked out who's rich and who's poor to target it. I mean, this is the same government who says we can build nuclear submarines in Australia, and they can't work out who's rich and who's poor to hand out $300. But in there last night too, I picked up there was $600 million for border security, $76 million for ASIO. Now, this says to me they've got a problem on their borders. They're now admitting it, at least in fiscal terms. But ASIO, this is the same ASIO that they won't let come in and sit at the National Security Committee of Cabinet. That's also telling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Peter. So one other final footnote about the gross defence spend. As you rightly say, the government is just spewing money out at the moment. It's like it's got fire hydrants going full pump, just spewing dollars out at enormous amounts. You know, between state and federal government, there's going to be $20 billion new money in the economy next year, and they won't increase defence spending by any meaningful amount at this moment. Now, in 5 or 6 years' time, we're going to be in a world of pain with debt and terms of trade not as good and everything, and yet they pretend that they're going to suddenly make heroic, massive increases in defence spending then. The increase to border security and ASIO is obviously something the government doesn't want to do because they honestly, like Joe Biden, they just don't believe national security is their issue. They're not going to get any votes out of it. The money doesn't go to their mates. And these are immediate increases in spending which they are being forced to make. You can see the beginning of the boats again. You can see the increase in the terror threat within Australia. Now they have humiliated ASIO and ACES by kicking them off the National Security Committee, but that's who they're going to turn to protect Australians from the terror threat. So I think these expenditure increases, they're welcome, but they're through gritted teeth and they're dictated by dire necessity, I would say, over the next 12 months.
Spot on, Greg Sheridan. Thank you. I'll read all your analysis in The Australian on the entrails as we're all working our way through the budget.
Peter.
Thank you, Greg.